Greetings, fellow humans. Katrina here. Quick disclaimer, I'm a professional, not your professional. Nothing I'm about to say should be taken as medical, legal, otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for education and amusement. That is it. Disclaimer over. So I thought I'd talk today a bit about what I don't know about cannabis. I've talked about cannabis quite a few times before, and I want to make it clear that I'm not pathologizing cannabis use in this episode, but I do want to go over a diagnosis that I found in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM-5, and that's called cannabis use disorder. Now, whether this will be revised in the text revision, I don't know, but there's lots of use disorders for different drugs in the DSM. This happens to be the diagnostic criteria for cannabis use disorder. Okay, here we go. The criteria A problematic pattern of cannabis use leading to clinically significant impairment or distress as manifested by at least two of the following occurring within a 12-month period. So first off the bat, it says clinically significant impairment. If you're not being impaired in any part of your life, it might not be that applicable. So significant impairment or distress. So distress can just be the worrying about it, the stress. And like I said, it's as manifested by two of what I'm about to say. So you don't have to have all these things to have cannabis use disorder, only two within a 12-month period. Number one, cannabis is often taken in larger amounts or over a longer period than was intended. Number two, there is a persistent desire or unsuccessful efforts to cut down or control cannabis use. Number three, a great deal of time is spent in activities necessary to obtain cannabis, use cannabis, or recover from its effects. Number four, craving or a strong desire or urge to use cannabis. Number five, recurring cannabis use resulting in failure to fulfill major role obligations. So this can be at work, school, or home. Failure to perform those obligations. Number six, continued cannabis use despite having persistent or recurrent social and interpersonal problems caused or exacerbated by the effects of cannabis. So social or interpersonal problems, arguing with people, exacerbated by the effects of use. So that's six. Number seven, important social, occupational, or recreational activities are given up or reduced because of cannabis use. So maybe you want to go somewhere and you end up not doing it because you got to get high. And it says given up or reduced because maybe you don't stop doing something, but you stop doing it as much, that kind of thing. Number eight, recurrent cannabis use in situations in which it is physically hazardous. So believe it or not, there are situations in which cannabis is not recommended to be used, and a big example of that is behind the wheel. So recurrent cannabis use in situations where there's a physical hazard. Number nine, cannabis use is continued despite no knowledge of having a persistent or recurrent physical or psychological problem that is likely to have been caused or exacerbated by cannabis. Number 10, tolerance. And now they're going to define tolerance a couple different ways. There's two. So it can be defined as a need for markedly increased amounts of cannabis to achieve intoxication or desired effect, or B, markedly diminished effect with continued use of the same amount of cannabis. That's a tolerance. Number 11, withdrawal as manifested by either of the following. A says a characteristic withdrawal syndrome for cannabis. Withdrawal syndrome is actually on its own page on 5. Oh, my brain just went blank. Okay, so there is cannabis withdrawal on page 517. Yes, so if you want to read more about cannabis withdrawal, you can look at it at 517. I'm going to read it for you. Yeah. So cessation of cannabis use that has been heavy and prolonged, and then 3 or more of the following signs and symptoms develop within approximately 1 week. So this is for withdrawal. I'm jumping around here. So for withdrawal, irritability, anger, aggression, nervousness, anxiety, sleep difficulty, insomnia, disturbing dreams, decreased appetite or weight loss, restlessness, depressed mood, and at least one of the following physical symptoms causing significant discomfort: abdominal pain, shakiness, tremors, sweating, fever, chills, or headache. So those are some of the withdrawal symptoms. So that was A, the characteristics of withdrawal syndrome, or B, cannabis or a closely related substance is taken to relieve or avoid withdrawal symptoms. And then it goes into specifiers about different things, but I won't really go into that. What I was thinking about reiterating is that it says in a 12-month period, 2 of those 11. So not all 11, just 2 of the 11. So a person could have important stuff given up because of their cannabis use, and maybe recurrent cannabis use in situations where it's physically hazardous, driving. So maybe they gave up one of their favorite things and they drive high. That's 2. That's criteria met. Now, just because you have some of these doesn't mean that you have necessarily all of these. And also, if you have recognized a few of them within yourself, you might do further research into the situation, seek your own medical expert stuff locally. If you think you have cannabis use disorder, there is treatment. There is actually a thing called, I want to say it's Marijuana Anonymous. Don't quote me on that though, but there is help if you are wanting to stop and cannot. But again, this is not saying that everybody who has weed use has cannabis use disorder. So hopefully that's clear as mud, that just because you smoke marijuana or cannabis or weed or ganja or whatever you want to call it doesn't mean that you have a particular disorder. Now, there is one that I didn't mention, and that is a diagnosis of cannabis intoxication. So that's basically if there was just recent use of cannabis and the person's high. So basically you get the conjunctival injection, increased appetite, dry mouth, tachycardia, 2 or more of those symptoms developing within 2 hours of cannabis use, along with a few other things, can show up as cannabis intoxication. So I jumped around a lot, but to review, I went over cannabis use disorder, cannabis withdrawal, and a little bit about cannabis intoxication. But believe it or not, those are only 3 out of the 5 cannabis-related disorders. So if you want to learn more, you can check out your own version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. I'm actually excited about that new edition that's coming out. They're doing a text revision. I believe that they're adding like grief and a few other things. So I'm going to keep my eyes out for that. You guys keep an eye out for the next week's episode. I am going to be in Switzerland for the first part of September, so you'll get throwback episodes. Look forward to that. And if you want to support the show, right, wrapping up now. So if you want to support the show, click the button on the website. And remember, I really do appreciate each and every one of you simply for existing.